Hey guys, Will here. So over the course of the last 8 to 12 months, we've seen an absolutely massive growth here on Boosted Media. We've seen pretty much a doubling in our subscribers as well as our daily view count. And that's really sort of accelerated over the last couple of months while a lot of people have been in lockdown. Now, something that I've mentioned in our Discord community quite recently is that, something I've always tried to do with this channel is answer as many of the comments personally as I possibly can, as well as many of your private messages as I can too. Now, that's become increasingly difficult, obviously, as the channel grows, and it will eventually at some point reach the stage where it's simply impossible for me to answer or read every single comment. It's starting to get pretty close to that now, but I do still do my absolute best. So the last thing that I ever want to do is sort of make you guys feel like I'm not accessible or anything like that. But in saying that, I am receiving 50 to 100 private messages a day, and it's simply not possible for me to answer every single one of you all the time. So what I wanted to do today is do my best to answer some of the most frequently asked questions that I get here on the channel. So I'm going to split this up into questions that are relating sort of directly to sim racing or the content on the channel. And then after that, I'll also answer some of the more personal questions that I receive quite frequently as well. So I've put timestamps in the description for you guys for all the questions that I'm going to be answering today, so you can skip to the ones that interest you. Now, a lot of these questions I have answered previously in dedicated videos, so I will reference those throughout the video as well as include links in the description for you as well. But I'm just sort of gonna skim over these as quickly as I can today to give you the top level information as well as references to where you can learn a little bit more. So the far and away most frequently asked question that I've been receiving, particularly in the last couple of months as people are purchasing a lot more gear for sim racing and sort of trying to get started, is are triple screens or VR better for sim racing? Now, as you guys would know, I do both. I have triple 35-inch curved monitors as well as a HP Reverb headset. And look, basically my opinion on this, now having had VR for I think about 9 months, I don't see VR as a direct replacement for triple screens just yet. In terms of the level of immersion that you get with it, definitely it's, at least for me, I think it's better than triple screens. But where it loses a little bit is in its versatility overall. I think that, triple screens, first of all, are compatible with more titles. There's still a lot of titles out there that aren't VR compatible. So if you've only got a VR headset, you are going to be limiting yourself there as well. And although obviously you have the benefit of stereoscopic 3D and the immersion of being able to look around inside the sim, the reality is that even on the most advanced consumer level headsets that are available at the moment, the pixel density just simply isn't as good as it is on a normal monitor. So you do sort of still get a little bit of that screen door effect going on, which does sort of constantly, it serves as a constant reminder that you are wearing a headset and you're not actually sitting in the car. Now, you do sort of zone out from that after a bit of time. But yeah, I think overall, I still feel like VR is very much in its infancy. I think that, once we see higher resolution screens inside the headsets, it's really going to change. And obviously, we also need higher end graphics cards or more powerful graphics cards to power those headsets as well. VR is extremely taxing on your system, and that's something that a lot of people don't realize when they go out and buy a headset and then they find that none of their games run properly. It's also going to be really interesting to see what the next generation of graphics cards bring to the table as well in terms of performance. So yeah, not quite there yet, but I think we're getting pretty close. Now, the next question's kind of along the same lines. Triple screens versus ultra-wide monitors or 49-inch monitors. This is something that's popping up, over and over again. I'm seeing this question asked at least 5 times a day in the various different Facebook groups. So to be honest with you guys, there's some pretty strong pros and cons to both approaches. And I don't necessarily think that one is better than the other. I think it just comes down to what's going to be the best for you. So triple screens, the way they're set up generally is you have them kind of wrapping around you. And you'll see in my rig, I've got my screen set at a 40 to 45 degree angle. So when I'm looking out my side window, I'm literally turning my head and looking out the side window. And that provides a deeper level of immersion than looking at a single sort of two-dimensional plane in front of you. Now, what I think a lot of people don't realize is that these curved monitors, at least the ones that are available right now, don't have enough curve in them to wrap around you to the same extent. So they're generally marketed with a curve radius number, so something like say 1200 or 1800, and that is the radius of the curvature or the distance that you need to be sitting away from the screen for it to actually wrap around, so it's at an even distance from your face at all points around. So in the case of all the 49-inch monitors that are available as of right now, their radius isn't steep enough or it's not curved enough to actually wrap around you to the same extent that you'd get from triple screens. So what that means is that, even though, yes, it does fill your entire field of view, you're still you're looking here and here rather than here and here to get that view. So it just doesn't quite offer that same level of immersion. It does kind of distort your perspective overall as well, because instead of trying to look in your mirror down here or down here, you're looking in your mirror kind of over here or over here. So that said, there are some pretty distinct advantages as well. The first one being the decreased demand on the overall system performance. So obviously, depending on the screen resolution, the amount of load on your system is going to vary. But generally speaking, the overall pixel count or the overall resolution across all three screens on a triple monitor setup is going to be quite a lot higher than it is on a 49-inch monitor. So that is going to have a increased demand on your system. Ultra-wide monitors also tend to be a set and forget type affair as well, whereas triple screens can sometimes lose their configuration in the NVIDIA surround software, and they could just generally be a little bit more difficult and a little bit more cumbersome to set up and maintain. So if you're after simplicity, then yeah, ultra-wide's probably the way to go. If you're wanting the ultimate level of immersion without going to VR, then I still recommend triple screens at the moment. Obviously, there's also the added advantage of not having the bezels displayed. But look, to be honest with you guys, I've never really found the bezels particularly distracting. When you're driving, you're really focusing on the center screen anyway, and the side screens are only really just sort of filling out your peripheral. So yeah, I actually, it surprised me because I thought when I first tried triple screens that it would really be distracting to me to have those bezels in the view. But yeah, it's never really turned out to be a problem for me. Other than that, it really just comes down to space requirements. Obviously, the infrastructure in terms of, a monitor stand and things like that are quite a lot greater and more expensive for triple screens as well. And the overall footprint is going to be a lot larger as well. So if you're in a restricted space, something like a 49-inch ultra wide or, a widescreen TV or something like that can be great. But yeah, I think ultimately the best immersion without going to VR is still offered by triple screens at the moment. It will be really interesting to see whether that changes with the release of the new Samsung G9 monitor that has that much steeper curve that we talked about in the video about that. Yeah, I think that could be a game changer. And as with everything, we will obviously continue to see advancements in the technology as well. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if it wasn't too long before we do see some sort of super mega ultra wide display that doesn't have any bezels, or some sort of display that has zero bezels so you can make them up against each other. We already see that in industrial applications like, video walls and stuff like that. So I can't see it's going to be too far away before we see a consumer level product for sim racing that follows along those same kind of lines. So that is question number 2. So question number 3, Fanatec versus Simucube. Should you buy a Fanatec or a Simucube wheelbase? Now, one thing that I want to reiterate again for you guys is that I haven't tried every single direct drive wheelbase that's available on the market. So I can only draw from my own personal experience. I've tested the Simagic M10, the Fanatec DD2, and the Simucube 2 Ultimate. Now, obviously, the Simucube 2 Ultimate is better than the DD2 in terms of the overall fidelity and the smoothness, but it's also a lot more expensive than the Fanatec DD2 as well. Now, I do have hopefully a DD1 coming soon, as well as a Simucube 2 Sport and Pro. So I'm going to be doing a lot more comparison testing there, and hopefully by the time I finish that, I'll be able to give you a more definitive answer in what is the better option price for price. But what it boils down to ultimately is, what's most important to you. And we've talked about this in my individual reviews of the products that I have tested in that regard. I still feel like Fanatec has the stronger ecosystem in terms of, plug and play. The tuning menu as well is awesome. The ability to make fine tuning adjustments to settings on the fly without having to alt tab out into another piece of software. So yeah, I think if you're after ease of use and simplicity, then Fanatec is still the stronger option in that regard. But overall fidelity and strength, things like that, I can't really comment on too much until I've got a little bit more exposure to some more wheelbases. Now, just on that topic as well, I do have some other brands that I'm speaking to at the moment as well. So VRS, for example, they're going to be sending one of their brand new direct drive wheelbases out in the next couple of months for me to test out. And I've also been talking to a couple of other brands as well. So something that's really important to me is to try to, I guess, broaden my experience as much as I possibly can. I'm still relatively new to the sim racing scene. I've only been doing this for just over 2 years. So there's still a lot of equipment out there that I haven't personally tested yet. And I try to sort of account for that as much as I can in my reviews. But yeah, Fanatec versus Simucube directly as a question. Really hard for me to say at this point in time. There's strengths and weaknesses to both. What I would suggest is that you check out my reviews as well as other people's reviews on each. Now, the next question kind of leads into that as well. Is a direct drive wheelbase worth it? Now, worth it is a very subjective term. You know, how much money do you want to spend? How much is a lot of money to you? It's going to be different for different people. What I would say is that direct drive, and we talked about this in my wheelbase guide recently as well. We talked about all the differences between different types of wheelbases throughout the entire range, from, you know, cog driven all the way through belt driven and direct drive. So I definitely recommend checking out that video. I'll link it above my head for you now, as well as in the description. But that's really going to answer this question in detail. But, you know, to answer it at a top level quickly for you now, direct drive wheelbases, you know, it's become a little bit of a buzzword in the market recently. And I think that, you know, you shouldn't necessarily just assume that direct drive automatically makes it better. And a good example of this is when I recently tested the SimMagic M10, I felt like even though it had more strength and overall fidelity than the Club Sport Wheelbase 2.5 belt driven from Fanatec, the overall refinement of the product and, you know, the fit and finish and the smoothness in the actual force feedback was actually better with the CSW than it is with the M10. So, you know, don't just assume automatically that direct drive means better than everything else. It really comes down to you do get what you pay for. And, you know, there's plenty of people out there that are perfectly happy and satisfied with a belt-driven wheelbase or even a cog-driven wheelbase. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be faster either. It's just down to that immersion and how much money you want to spend. So again, check out reviews there and determine based off your own budget what you think is most important to you. On to question number 5 now. Which sim title, speaking about PC specifically here, which sim title is the best to buy? Now, in particular, I see a lot of people asking whether they should buy Assetto Corsa or Assetto Corsa Competizione, which is a little bit strange to me because they're so fundamentally different in terms of what they offer. But look, I mean, again, it comes down to exactly what you want out of a sim. I think different sims, unfortunately, offer different strengths and weaknesses. It'd be great if there was one sim that just did everything perfectly, so I could just say, yeah, just get this and you'll never need anything else. But we're simply not in that world. Now, Automobilista 2 does show a lot of promise, but I still feel like it's a little bit early that I could recommend it as a catch-all for, you know, if you can only afford one sim title, that's the one that you would get. So if online racing is the most important thing to you and you can afford it, I still think iRacing is probably the most versatile option there. But look, I think overall, in terms of the best value sim for money, it's impossible to go past Assetto Corsa, the original from 2014. You know, it's got such a massive depth of content, particularly within the modding scene as well. There's a, you know, a huge range of different tracks, even open world style tracks as well. Now we've got, you know, canyons and high force, a lot of tracks like that where you can just sort of drive around the countryside. And also a massive amount of different types of cars as well, and a really strong modding community behind it that, you know, basically makes it limitless. So I think in terms of value for money, if you could only afford to buy one sim, then it's really hard to go past Assetto Corsa right now. It's a game that I've only sort of gotten into in the last 6 months or so, but it's sort of become my pickup sim for whenever I just want to go for a drive and I just want to have some fun. I haven't done any online racing in it yet, but I know that there's some third-party platforms available for it as well, which do a really good job of organizing online racing as well as league events as well. So yeah, I think at this point in time, if you can only afford one sim, it's really hard to go past Assetto Corsa. So question number 6 now, how do I record a fixed screen while playing in VR? So a lot of you guys that have seen my iRacing race videos or my race content will have noticed this. I often play with VR headset on, but then when you guys see the video, when I record the video, it's filmed in a fixed view so the camera's not shaking around all over the place. And with a field of view quite wide as well, I have it set quite far back so you can see a bit of the cockpit as well. So I actually have a video where I went into this in great detail, showed you exactly how I record my race videos. So I'll link that above my head as well as in the description for you. But to give you a quick idea, what I'm doing is I'm actually recording the replay. So I play it live, I record the sound live as well so you guys can hear crew chief and any of the other radio chat and stuff as well. But then I go back into the game afterwards, replay the replay file and set the field of view completely different on a single screen so that you guys can see that fixed view when you're watching the video. So that's how I do that. Now the next question that relates to this as well, what overlay am I using in my iRacing videos? Now that same video that I mentioned just before also takes you through this as well. I'm using a little package called SDK Gaming. It is a paid package, but it's quite cheap for what it offers. And yeah, really powerful piece of software. So I definitely would recommend checking that out. There's a link in the description below as well for you guys where you can get a discount for that too. So check that one out. Now we sort of move on to the more personal questions. So next one is, what is your favorite wheel that you own? This is a really tough one because it's not a one size fits all kind of arrangement. Different wheels are more suitable for different types of driving. And as you guys would have seen in my recent attempt at drifting, I discovered quite quickly that using a D-shaped or a Formula style wheel for drifting is basically impossible. And I actually have a drift wheel and rally wheel arriving hopefully today, which I'll be showing you in the next few days. But I think if I had to pick one wheel in particular that I absolutely love, it would probably be my iRacing F28 SC. Now, the reason why I love this wheel so much is simply because its overall construction is just completely over the top in terms of the engineering that's gone into it. It's so far in excess of what you actually need in terms of quality for sim. But I kind of love that. I love that over-engineered quality to it. And the build quality is just absolutely impeccable. It's completely billet aluminium. Everything about it is CNC machined. And it really is pure automotive race car grade quality. So if I had to choose just one wheel that I could keep forever and had to get rid of all my other wheels, it wouldn't be that wheel simply because it's not the most versatile wheel in the world. I think if there was a way to adapt the Porsche 911 GT3 wheel from Fanatec across to the Simucube 2 platform, then that would probably be my wheel of choice. But at this point in time, at least, there isn't an aftermarket solution that actually works with that integrated telemetry display. So until that happens, I'm a little bit limited there as well. But I think, yeah, if I had to pick my favorite wheel out of everything, it would be the iRacing F28 SC. Okay, so getting into the much more personal questions now. This next question is one that I think is generally asked more as an attack on sim racing than because the person is actually genuinely interested in my answer, but I'm going to answer the question anyway. Why don't I just buy a real race car? Why do I spend all this money on a sim? So I've actually done a dedicated video probably about a year, maybe even more than a year ago now, where I talked about exactly the reasons why I actually sold my track cars and built a simulator. So I've actually already answered this, but I'll talk about it a little bit more for you now as well, because I think my feelings have only sort of been reinforced further over the last year since I made that video. So first and foremost, I have a really big problem with anxiety. I have a generalized anxiety disorder, which makes it really difficult for me to often enjoy things that a lot of people take for granted. So, you know, things are a really big deal for me. I blow things way out of proportion in my mind. And a lot of the time that kind of stifles or zaps the enjoyment out of things for me. And one of the things that I found back when I used to spend a lot of time on the track is that because I was always so scared of crashing and hurting myself, or, you know, having an expensive repair bill, or, you know, damaging somebody else's equipment or something like that, I always kind of had this underpinning sense of anxiety that took the enjoyment away from it for me. And because of that, I was never able to really sort of push myself and explore my limits or the limits of my cars. And therefore, it just kind of became a bit of a waste of time and money. So what I find is with sim racing, I'm able to just sort of, you know, let go of a lot of that. And I still actually do get really anxious before races. But generally, I'm able to just enjoy it a lot more than the track, and I'm able to sort of push my limits more in an environment that's safe and where, you know, I'm not going to have a massive repair bill if something goes wrong. So that's kind of what originally enticed me or attracted me towards sim racing. And yeah, that love for it's only really sort of grown from there. So since I made that video, I'd say I've definitely, you know, reinforced that was the right decision even more. Now, I would really love to build another project car pretty soon. It's sort of been feeling the itch recently, but I don't think it would be a track car. I think it'd be more of a street car style thing. And yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more in the coming months on the channel as well. So start thinking about that, guys. If you'd like to see another project car build on the channel, let me know what you would like to see. But I mean, other than that, other reasons is just the typical sort of expense as well as time away from family as well. So, you know, with a simulator, you can jump in any car, any track around the world, and you can just go for a drive. So like, you got to spare half an hour after work before the kids get home from school, or before, you know, your wife gets off work, or after dinner, or before bed. You can just jump in the sim, go for a drive, shut it off, and then go to sleep. You can't do that with a track car. You kind of have to commit to a track day. You have to do all the maintenance. You have to pay all the money that's involved as well. So yeah, it's just really appealing to me in that sense, because it's something that you can just jump in and do at any time in the world. And I mean, at least for me, where I live in Australia, we have very limited access to different circuits anyway. There's literally only 3 different race circuits that are within, you know, reasonable driving distance to me here. And most of those are booked out way in advance. So you have to commit to a track day months and months ahead of time. And it often costs, I think the last track day I did ended up costing me about $1,500 between the track fees, the maintenance, the brake pads, the oils, all that stuff. And that's without even having an incident. That's without having to deal with any sort of damage or anything like that. Fuel as well, of course, is expensive, although not right now. But yeah, it's a really, really, really expensive hobby. And I think a lot of people that kind of complain about how expensive sim racing gear is tend to not sort of consider just how expensive it is to modify cars or go to track days and things like that. So that is the reason why I don't own a track car at the moment and why I don't feel particularly compelled to own one. Time away from family as well is another big factor. Obviously, I have 2 young kids that I want to spend as much time with as I possibly can. And sim racing means I can just do it in the evenings when they're asleep, and then I'm home for them when they're, when they're up and about and needing me around. So yeah, that's the reason why I don't currently own a track car. As I said, I would love to do another project car build in the not too distant future, but for now, no real interest in owning another track car. So do I get the things that I review for free, and do I get to keep them? So this varies, to be honest with you. A lot of the time I do get stuff for free. I always let you guys know in the video or in the description at least when I do receive stuff for free. And generally speaking these days, you can pretty much assume anything from Fanatec that I review will generally be provided to me free of charge. But yeah, look, what I try to do is I try to broaden my experience. As I mentioned before when we were talking about direct drive wheelbases, I try to broaden my experience with stuff as much as I possibly can. I think one of the dangers when you're first starting out with a YouTube channel within any genre is if you align yourself too closely with any one brand, then you start being labeled as a shill. And it's really difficult to not sort of align yourself with one brand too heavily at the start, because when you're smaller companies are going to be interested in sponsoring you and stuff like that. And it can be really difficult to maintain that sort of level playing field when you're being offered free gear from one brand and one brand only. So what I've always tried to do is if I receive something free from a company, I'll then go and buy the equivalent from other brands as well, just so I've got a more broad experience. Now, I'm not always able to do that because obviously I don't have unlimited resources here in terms of finances. But yeah, as the channel grows, we are being sent a lot more stuff to review for free, and I will continue to obviously let you guys know when that's the case. Some things I do still pay for. My SimLabs cockpit I paid for. A lot of the other things, my seat belts, my Next Level Racing motion platform paid for. The PC that I'm running was all paid for, completely retail as well. So yeah, I do still pay for a lot of stuff. All my sound and lighting gear, everything like that's all paid for as well. But yeah, to answer that question directly, a lot of the stuff that I do review these days is sent through free of charge. Now, to answer the second part of that question, do I get to hold on to stuff that I review? Now, that varies as well, but generally what I try to do is I try to encourage companies that send me stuff to review to allow me to hold on to it at least for an extended period of time. Now, that's not just because I want free stuff and I want more gear. The honest truth is I've got more stuff here now than I really even have the space for. The reason for it is more because it allows me to do more long-term review for you guys. One of the really difficult things about doing review videos is that it can be quite difficult to offer a balanced view on a product when you only have limited amount of time with it. So I try to hold on to things for as long as I possibly can to get as much experience as I possibly can with the product, and then do follow-up reviews as time goes on. So generally my approach to review videos is I try to do sort of like an unboxing and first impressions video, then a deeper dive into the features as well if the product sort of warrants it. Some products are so simple that they don't really need that. And then usually I try to come back after a couple of months or even a year or something like that and give you a detailed sort of, recap on my feelings on the product, whether I've noticed anything change, whether I have any differences in opinion since I did the initial review, and then kind of just go from there. Now, one of the other important things there as well, particularly in the sim racing scene, is that products are often evolving over time as well in terms of software, firmware, features, and things like that. Now, one really good example of that is when I first received the Fanatec DD2 wheelbase, the firmware that was available at the time was not real great. And as I mentioned in that review, my first driving impression was pretty disappointing, to be honest. And then when I upgraded the firmware to the latest package, it completely transformed the product. And it was literally like a completely different wheelbase. Now, if I'd done a review video on that and then just said, guys, based on my driving experience right now, I wouldn't recommend this product, and then sent it back again, then what would have happened when they released that new firmware package? People would have watched that old review still. They would have seen my opinion from months ago when the product did still need further development. And then that would write that product off for a lot of people that would otherwise have a good experience. So yeah, I try to hold on to stuff as long as I can, simply so I'm able to give you that longer term review of those products and sort of follow their evolution as they become more refined and add more features as well. All right, so this next question is a bit of an interesting one. How do I get people to send me stuff for free to review? Now, it really fascinates me that this question always seems to be asked in the same kind of tone. Now, I do get asked this question at least once a day at the moment, and it always seems to be asked in the same way. How do I get people to send me stuff for free? And that really interests me because I don't really see it as me getting people to do anything. Most of the time, it's people approaching me these days wanting me to review their products. But even in the cases where it is actually me reaching out to them to review something, it's not about me getting them to do something. It's about the value that I offer their brand in terms of an independent reviewer. So, you know, I'm not the least bit interested in being paid to do reviews. I have a real problem with any channel that actually, you know, exchanges money for review, because I don't think that that's what a review is. A review is an unbiased, or at least as unbiased as is possible, representation of somebody's opinion on a product or a service or, you know, whatever it is. Whereas an endorsement video is when you're actually being paid in exchange for, giving a particular message or conveying a particular point of view. So, you know, an endorsement video would be if somebody approached me and said, hey, we want to pay you a sum of money to do, you know, to say some nice things about our product. And that's something that I will never, ever, ever do on this channel. So how do I actually approach this situation? So if somebody reaches out to me to review something, more often than not, they're going to be putting conditions or trying to put conditions on what they want me to say. And this is, I think, where a lot of people that are starting out with YouTube channels kind of get trapped. The appeal of getting something for free is so strong that they often are willing to sell out a little bit. And I'm not accusing anybody of doing that. Please don't hear that. But, you know, I've been there in that situation before, and you really have to think of the long term. You have to think, okay, what are my goals for this channel? What are my goals for this review website or whatever it is that you're doing? And is the value of that product that they're going to send me for free worth selling out, in effect? And for me, I've always been interested in maintaining my own brand here, or growing my own brand, Boosted Media. So, you know, the value of an expensive piece of equipment is still worth less to me than my reputation. So when somebody offers to send me a product for free, I make it very simple. I say, okay, look, I'm happy to review your product as long as it's something that I feel is relevant to the audience. And, you know, if they've tried to put any conditions on what I'm going to say, I'll just straight up say to them, look, if you want me to review your product, the conditions of that is that I'm free to say whatever it is that I want about the product. And obviously I'm going to be fair in how I approach that as well. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is trying to help brands improve their product as well. So say, for example, I have a bad experience with a product. I'll always go back to them first and allow them to address the problem before I put a video out about it, or before I sort of conclude the video. And you've seen that a couple of times when we had a couple of problems with the SimMagic wheelbase that I had here for review. I actually did a video explaining the issues that I was having with the wheelbase, and then, talking you through the process of dealing with that company and dealing with the problem and getting it resolved. So, yeah, I think it's only fair to allow them the opportunity to rectify problems and improve their product as well. Because, you know, if I'm providing feedback as somebody that's got quite an ever-growing amount of experience with lots of different products, I'm able to help them improve their products as well. So, yeah, it really becomes about the value that we have for them rather than what they're giving us for free, if that makes sense. So, yeah, generally speaking, if they approach me, I'll say to them, look, the conditions of working with me is that I'm free to say whatever I want about the product. Now, obviously, it's okay for them to send me through a list of key selling features or key talking points, and that gives me sort of like a reference sheet for the things that I know are important to them, and that sort of becomes my focus for the review, as well as my own opinion on the product, of course. But yeah, if they try to sort of influence me and try to tell me what they want me to say, generally speaking, I'll either push back on them and say, look, no, I'm not prepared to do that. So unless you are willing to sort of let me do my own thing, then I'm not interested in doing the review. Or occasionally the way they approach me is so, I guess, arrogant in the way it's written that I just won't respond at all. So a lot of times, yeah, companies will send me an email. They'll say, we want you to do a video on our product. We want you to say X, Y, Z. And I just go, you know what? I don't get a good vibe from these guys. I don't get a good feeling about this, and I just won't respond. Or I'll politely write back to them and say, look, I appreciate the opportunity, but look, just not interested in doing that at this point in time. So that's how I approach it if they're coming to me. So flipping that around now to my approach to actually contacting businesses to review their products. So the most important thing, I think, and where I see a lot of people trip up with this is, don't make it sound like you're just out to get something for free, because, that is a massive turnoff for these companies. You really need to be presenting value to them. At the end of the day, reviews, independent reviews are cheap marketing for a lot of these businesses. It's a lot cheaper for them to send you out a product for free at cost price than it is for them to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a marketing campaign on Google or TV or whatever it is. So don't undervalue yourself. Don't underestimate the value that you represent to them as a independent reviewer, but also don't come across arrogantly. You don't want to be approaching them and saying, oh, I run this YouTube channel, I've got millions of subscribers, and you should send me this for free to review because your product needs the exposure. Like, that's not the way to go about it. You want to really think deeply about exactly what it is that you represent and what value you can present to them. So to give you an example, if I'm approaching a company about doing a review of their new wheelbase or something, what I'll do is I'll actually almost storyboard out the entire review before I've even approached them. And I'll spend 1 to 2 hours writing up an email, drafting up an email, reading over it tens and tens of times to make sure that it's absolutely as efficient as it can possibly be. Because you generally only get one shot at this. They'll read it, and if your email or your contact doesn't sort of, get their attention straight away, they're likely never going to talk to you again. So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, really excited about the product that you guys are developing or the product that you've just released or whatever. Here's some of the things that I've noticed that differentiate it, or some of the things that I think are really exciting about the product. So you want to, sort of blow a little bit of sunshine to, to make them feel good, make them feel warm and fuzzy, and let them know that you're paying attention, that you actually understand what it is that they're doing, not just that you're a reviewer and you're going to do what you want. You really need them to understand that you're taking the time to understand what it is that they're offering. So generally from there, I'll then say, all right, these are the things that I would love to review about the product. These are the reasons why I would like to focus on these things. And here's what I can offer you in terms of exposure and stuff like that. So, and I'm not talking about I'm going to sell this, I'm going to, help you sell X number of units or anything like that, because obviously I can't make any guarantees in that regard. My job isn't to, market products and help them sell things. My job is to offer my viewers a unbiased and open opinion about the product so they can make their own decisions. So that in itself offers great value to these brands, because obviously an independent reviewer is more influential than TV marketing or Google ads or anything like that. And what I find is that when I approach it in that way, when I take the time to really understand their product and really come at them with a plan for exactly what I want to do, rather than just an email saying, hey, please send me free stuff, then my hit rate's actually pretty darn high. I get very few knockbacks these days. And yeah, I think it's just down to that approach. So 3 main takeaways there. Don't undervalue what it is that you represent to them in terms of value, but don't be arrogant or entitled in your approach to actually speaking to them about doing a review. And also take the time to really understand and present a case to them so that they know exactly what they're going to be getting in return for sending you the product. So next question, how am I able to do YouTube full-time with such a low subscriber count? So as you guys would know, about probably 6 or 8 months ago now, we made the announcement that we were moving across into doing Boosted Media full time. And at the time, we were still doing a lot of other contract work on the side as well. So that was really the bread and butter for us as a family. That's how we were putting food on the table and sort of building up the, the YouTube side of things over time as we went. So historically, since I started the channel, I've always worked full time. I've always run multiple businesses in the background as well. And that was a means of sort of trying to diversify my income streams as much as I possibly can while I built this up in the background. It's only really been in the last 4 or 5 months that YouTube itself has become, a primary source of income for the family now. And, basically in the last 3 months that YouTube and the videos around that, so, running the website, writing the reviews and stuff like that has become my full-time job. So I'm not really doing any other contract work at all on the side now. So how have I actually been able to do that? It's all really about diversification of income streams. Now, there's still a long way to go with that. As you guys would have seen, there's lots of different ways that you are able to support the channel. So we have the membership button on YouTube, the join button down below the video. We've got our Streamlabs donation link. We've got PayPal donation links. We've got merchandise. We've got, obviously the AdSense revenue that comes in from the ads on the videos. But far and away, the biggest earner for us and the thing that's actually made it possible for us to move to doing this full time has been the affiliate links. And I'm a really big fan of affiliate marketing for a couple of reasons. I think that often it gets a bad rap because a lot of people approach it in kind of devious ways. A lot of times you see links on websites and stuff that are sort of trying to trick you into following their link to purchase something without realizing that they're actually getting a commission from when you buy that. Now, I've always kind of approached affiliate marketing on this channel in the sense that I'm giving you an unbiased and a a balanced view on my review of a product. And then it's up to you guys whether you want to use that link or not. So I always put it there in the description for you guys. So if you guys want to support what we're doing, if you're seeing value in the content that we're producing, then that's a choice that you guys can make to support the channel. And we did that with the F1 wheel that we reviewed just a couple of days ago. And there was an absolutely massive response to that. A whole heap of you guys bought that wheel through my link. And I didn't trick you into clicking that link. At least I hope you didn't feel like I did. I made it very clear both in the video content and in the description link itself that, this was an affiliate link, and if you click this link, I will be receiving a commission. But because we've positioned it as a way that you guys are able to support the channel without having to spend an extra cent, that's turned out to be a really effective and really efficient way of monetizing the channel, without it costing you guys anything, and doing it in a way that, allows you guys to support what we're doing and feel like you're involved in the process of growing this, rather than, asking for donations or GoFundMes or anything like that, which I'm really not comfortable with, to be honest with you guys. So that's how we've done it. Now, there is still a very long way to go with this, and I want to make that very clear. At the moment, the bulk of that is coming from the Fanatec affiliate links, and if it wasn't for that affiliate program, there's no way that I'd be able to do this full time. It's as simple as that. But, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, because obviously, first and foremost, I don't want to be biased towards one brand. Now, unfortunately, at the moment, as it stands, Fanatec are pretty much the only ones in the space that do have an affiliate program. So other than that, we have, our Amazon affiliate links, which are pretty common on YouTube. But again, you won't see me pushing Fanatec products specifically just because we do have those affiliate links, because the moment we sell out, the moment people stop using the links, the channel dies and it's all over. But yeah, one of the big focuses for me at the moment on the business side of things, besides producing content, is trying to, diversify those income streams as much as I possibly can. I've looked at a bunch of different options for doing that. We've even looked at doing things like, consulting and stuff like that as well. And I'll talk about that in just a moment as well. But really what it comes down to is you want to diversify as much as you possibly can, so that if any one particular source of income disappears, then you're not completely screwed. Now, as it stands right now, we are still in our infancy in regards to that. And if, for example, if that Fanatec affiliate program was to shut down, we'd be in a lot of trouble with the channel. But yeah, those affiliate programs that we participate in and link in the descriptions of the videos are the primary source of income for the channel. And that's what's made it possible for me to move to doing this full time as a source of income for the family, as well as continue to grow the channel. So I really do appreciate all of the support that you guys have given us there as well. So on to the last question now, which kind of ties into what we were just talking about. One thing I get asked surprisingly often is, can I pay you to help me? Can I, send you a donation, or can I book in a time and pay you an hourly rate to help? Now, this is something, as I mentioned before, I have looked at doing this. I have looked at doing a consulting program or something like that. Really what it boils down to is, and I'm not writing it off, it's certainly something that could happen in the future, but yeah, what it boils down to is, when you directly exchange your time for money, it limits you in terms of your scalability. So if I was to, spend a day or 2 days a week consulting, if I spend an hour with somebody, then that hour is spent with them and them alone, and that's time that I can't spend helping anybody else. So I might get paid, $50 or $100 an hour for that time, but that's the maximum that I'll ever be able to earn from spending that time. So regardless of how popular the channel was to get or how many people are watching the videos, the time that I'm spending doing that one-on-one interaction is only ever going to earn that amount of money. So what I've tried to do with Boosted Media is make things as scalable as possible. And that's why my focus is always primarily on content, because the amount of work that's required from me is the same whether 10 people or 10 million people watch a video. So I find it better to try to answer as many questions as I can and do all that kind of thing in my videos. So therefore, when somebody asks me a question, I can simply say to them, here's, thanks for the question. Here's a bunch of resources to check out that will answer that question for you. And what I find in doing it that way is that, generally speaking, if somebody approaches me and says, hey, can I pay for an hour of your time? I can then go back to them and say, look, okay, what is it that you're actually wanting to ask me? Because chances are there's already a video about it, or there's already a resource somewhere online for free that will answer the question without them having to spend a cent. And more often than not, we end up talking for maybe 5 minutes and we're able to sort all their problems out, and it doesn't cost them a cent. So I think that that's the best way for me right now to approach that, simply because it offers more value to them because they're not having to pay for my time. It frees my time and my resources up to produce more content for a wider audience. And it benefits the community, because that way the answer to their question is out there for everybody rather than, it only being there for them. And there is an absolute ton of resources available online for free as well. Obviously, we've got our Discord community. There's all sorts of forums out there, the GT Planet forums, the race department forums, Reddit, all of these things are out there for free. Now, just on that subject as well, another thing that I want to draw a little bit of attention to as well is that in my experience, a lot of the time, people that are sending me private message questions, or people that are wanting to pay for my time to answer a specific question, more often than not, they actually already know the answer to the question, or at least they know where to find the answer to the question. More what they're wanting is the reassurance or the affirmation of actually, speaking to me about it so that they know that they're making the right decision. And that's something that's really interesting, because I think we see that a lot of the time on, places like Facebook groups as well. A lot of the time, people aren't necessarily asking a question because they want to know an answer. They're asking a question because they want to see the result of what asking that question actually causes. Is there going to be a massive backlash? Is everybody going to sort of agree with them? Is everybody going to disagree? And that's a really great way to sort of gauge a response to a question and get a more broad spectrum, answer to the question as well. So, if somebody's asking me a question specifically, all I can offer is my own personal opinion and maybe send them some resources to check online for some other people's opinions too. But when they ask that question out in the public domain, they're going to get a much broader response from a whole bunch of people, which I personally think is a lot more beneficial to them in the long run than, just my own personal opinion on the topic. So that's, again, the reason why I've sort of approached things in that way. Now, we might end up looking at a consulting program a little bit further on down the track once we have additional staff here and stuff like that, but that will probably be more targeted towards, businesses that want to set up equipment and stuff like that, rather than sort of answering personal questions. And, even if we do go down the path of doing it, it'll definitely very much be, approached from the standpoint of, if you want to get in touch with us, we can help you out. But before you do that, here's a bunch of free resources that you can check out to hopefully answer your question before we go down the path of exchanging money for time. But yeah, what I think is really important to the structure of Boosted Media, and I think one of the areas where we've been quite successful is that, we don't exchange time for money directly. So we're not offering a service at an hourly rate or anything like that. It's all about producing as much content as we possibly can, trying to, grow our audience, grow our community, and reach more people. And naturally, as we reach more people, the income streams grow. And, now we've pretty much reached the point with the channel where we don't really need to do any consulting, at least as it stands right now, because, we're pretty comfortable with the income that we're receiving from the multiple different revenue sources that we discussed just before. So yeah, my focus moving forward is going to be continuing to try to provide the best quality, the most diverse content that I possibly can for you guys for free. The content will always be free. And it's as simple as that. The more people watch the videos, the better off we do financially as a business, and the better we're able to serve the sim racing community. So that's pretty much it for all the common questions, at least the ones that I'm receiving most often at the moment. And as I said before, I do encourage you to jump in our Discord community if you do have questions there. We've got a really strong group of people there that are always willing to help you guys out, and a really friendly bunch of people too. I know a lot of times in sim racing, and in a lot of these sort of hobbies, there can be quite a bit of toxicity. Sim racing tends to be one of the better ones in my experience, but never be afraid to reach out and ask a question. I can't promise that I'll be able to answer every single person. I do try to sort of redirect you to the appropriate channels, whether it's Discord or forums and stuff like that, where you'll get a better answer than the one that I could give you personally. But yeah, look, thank you very much for all the support there. I hope that answering these questions has helped you guys out, whether it's a more generic sim racing question or something that you were wondering about with the structure of this channel in particular. So thanks very much for watching, guys. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you again soon. Bye.
Ooh.